If you're looking for a new way to support the podcast, check out Dubby.gg, an energy supplement company trying to make a difference. There, you can use code SIDEMISSION for 10% off your order. Thank you to Dubby for sponsoring this episode, and we hope you enjoy.
Welcome into the newest episode of Side Mission. I, like always, am your host, Rusty Ellis, joined by the boys Kyle Lynch and Matt Beck. And today we are talking about Saros, a game that, Kyle, I know you were looking forward to. I think we were all looking forward to this game. I don't think that was just one of us was looking forward to. I think we all were. And it's an interesting game to talk about because I'm not quite sure, Kyle, that it met the hype. I don't think that it lived up to the hype. I know sales wise, it's not doing very well at all right now, especially when you consider how big the budget is. But coming off of Returnal, I think that we had higher expectations for Housemarque with this one. And it feels disappointing to say that I'm not sure those expectations were met.
Yeah, I think that there were many things that they could have done better that unfortunately were done better in Returnal. Mainly the storytelling and, in my opinion, the use of the guns in the DualSense, because, I enjoyed how, in the first game, you halfway press the trigger for one firing mode and you full press it for another. Having 3 different firing modes on one trigger was impressive that you did that much. It also got very jumbled, and there were a lot of times when I would be trying to use the secondary fire and I would accidentally push it all the way down because it didn't lock as well as I think it did in Returnal, since it was just 1 and 2. There wasn't, I just think that, honestly, those right out the gate were what I noticed that Returnal did better. Now, with this game, I think did better was the way that they scaled. They kind of had a longer path to, I would say, skill progression. It doesn't really, it doesn't really punish you as much right at the beginning like Returnal did. Returnal, I mean, right out the gate, you're just getting fucked.
Yeah. No, I think that you're right. I do think that the progression as a whole in this game was better. I remember that in Returnal, I struggled to even try to beat the first boss. And this one, I felt like as a whole, getting to the first boss was fine. It opened up another problem that we'll talk about a little bit later. I know a problem that me and you both have, and I'm pretty sure Matt does as well, when it comes to opening up the path to the boss and whether or not that path stays open on future cycles. Um, I felt like learning the boss was very doable. It felt very, it felt very tough at first, but once you got really your second wind or the second chance ability, it felt like all of a sudden it became very, very doable. And I think that progression, being able to collect Lucenite, being able to upgrade your health, your armor, the damage you can deal, how fast your adrenaline charges, I do think that all of that is really good in this game. It is a step up from Returnal in this game. Matt, I think that the one thing we can absolutely give Housemarque credit for, and they did this with Returnal as well, and it's impressive equally so here, years later. It's impressive that despite the fact of how much shit is going on screen at one time, there really wasn't very many performance issues that I could detect. I felt like pretty consistently it was hitting 60 FPS. And considering again how much stuff is going on the screen at one time, I do feel like it would be very, very easy for there to be slowdowns at some point, for that 60 FPS to not always be consistent, for sometimes for it to, stutter and drop a little bit. I do feel like the game performance wise is really, really damn solid.
Oh yeah, the budget for sure shows with how much is going on screen. Like when they call this game a bullet hell, they are not kidding, because man, I mean, I feel bad for people who are maybe colorblind playing this, because you have to be able to keep an eye on the blue balls, the yellow balls, and the red balls. Like the blue balls.
You're a
But
child. We continue.
luckily, luckily, at some point in the game, they do give you a cool parry system, which works against the red orbs. which is so satisfying when you pull it off, because it does a lot of damage when you parry the enemy's red orbs back towards them. But in just the amount of enemies on screen at one time, like, oh yeah, the performance was impressive. Like, I mean, this game actually felt like a next, current generation PlayStation 6 game.
Yeah,
PlayStation
it
5,
felt
I
like
mean.
about to say it feels like one of the few games that nowadays we look at and it fully takes advantage of all the hardware at its disposal. And I do think, and Kyle, you mentioned this with Returnal specifically the year it came out, that we keep wanting devs to take advantage of the DualSense and to take advantage of the hardware that's at their fingertips. And it feels like Housemarque, at the very least, has that down. They know how to utilize the DualSense in the way that is the most satisfying for the player, being able to feel the different triggers, being able to feel the vibrations depending on the environment you're moving around in, feeling kind of that jolt in the controller whenever you use your dash ability. Like, I do feel like they nail all that in addition to, like, a lot of games are doing now, seemingly with the DualSense. Anything that is played out, any audio that's played out over a radio in the game comes out actually through the DualSense speaker, which I think is really, really cool. I think it's a nice feature that
Yeah.
really helps immerse you. I think, Kyle, Housemarque has mastered that as well. I feel like they do take full advantage of the hardware.
Yeah, that's one thing I would really like to see other Sony first-party, devs do. Team Asobi does it with Astro, but this game really makes the DualSense a function, not a feature. Because in most other games, it's really just an added feature that you have feedback on the triggers. But in this game, it's not just for immersion. There's a reason to have the DualSense. I don't understand how you would play this without it. I still think it's very impressive that they brought Returnal to the PC to be able to be played with mouse and keyboard, because, I mean, using the different functions, with the DualSense actually makes me feel like this controller was worth spending the money to improve upon the DualShock.
Yes.
I would love to see Sony Santa Monica do something with the DualSense where it requires you to have it for the next God of War game or for the next, Spider-Man game or hopefully in Wolverine. I think that their understanding of the DualSense is very impressive, which, not only that, paired with the PS5, their graphics are top-notch. Their particle effects, I mean, there is just, like you said, so much happening while maintaining a steady 60 FPS and looking as gorgeous as it does. I mean, this is a very colorful game. For a lot of the environments to, be a little lackluster in color compared to the first game, the projectiles, I think maybe that contrast probably helps a lot, because you don't want colorful projectiles on a colorful environment. It'd be hard to see them.
Yeah.
Maybe that was one of the complaints in Returnal. But I really wish that this game had surpassed Returnal. I wish that they had done more than just add an upgrade tree, because the few abilities that you get, I mean, they were cool, but I really wanted more. I did not like the melee ability in this game compared to Returnal's sword. What the fuck is cooler than a sword? Why is that? Who thought a punch is cooler than a sword? A laser sword. You're stupid. I'm sorry.
I never used melee unless you had to. Enemies that had their shields on them, that was the only time.
I also didn't like that they had these areas from the very first game that you couldn't even access until you got the ability from the very last area. In Returnal, at least they kind of progressed where you would start to see these things that you can't access in the respected areas. Like, in the first area, you see these red, gates that you can't get through until you get the sword, which is also in the first area. Makes sense why you'd see them. You don't see things, and I think you saw grapple points, which you don't get until the second area, that's fine. Hint at it, but
that's the third area. That's the third area, actually.
Oh, I meant in Returnal.
I got you.
Yeah, but in this game, they had, everything, every ability you could use, it was in every area, and it was kind of stupid that they did that. I don't know. I just didn't like it.
Yeah, I think that it's cool that you give us reasons to go back and play through earlier areas. I think that's cool because you can now access things and you can access places and different boxes and chests that you couldn't access before. However, I have also said this: what good does that do you unless you're going to run through the entire game beginning to end? And believe me, we will talk about that because I think that the biggest word I can use, or the best word I can use to describe this game, is disappointing. Because I think the game is good. I think it's a really good game. I think it's a solid like 7.5 out of 10 game. It's a good game. However, how this game was built up and the expectations that Housemarque set from Returnal had me setting up to think this should be a game of the year contender. It should have been. And that's the reality, is that's what it should have been ultimately. And there are multiple key factors into why it's not. The first is uneven difficulty because I'm sorry, the first two areas were super straightforward, were super simple. The third area is an ungodly difficulty spike. It's it's off the charts difficult because there is a function, or there is a mechanic in the game where you get through a certain point of the level and you then, to access the rest of the level, have to go into eclipse mode. When you go into eclipse mode, enemies do more damage, they do corruption damage, you take a lot more damage, you deal seemingly a lot less damage as well. Now, it's an easy way to set up a cycle if you choose to go straight into eclipse from the very beginning of the level, because you can raise your proficiency much faster and all that. You can get better weapons much earlier. However, it's much harder, leading to much more shorter runs because odds are you are going to die more than a handful of times. The third area being nothing but an eclipse section, meaning you have to eclipse in the very beginning to go anywhere, I think was a bad decision. I think that was a bad design choice. I think they should have saved that for the later areas, and they already did that with some of the later areas. They already did that. Like, I know, Kyle, you mentioned the very last area in the game before you fight the king. That is an entirely eclipse area, and you cannot second chance in that area. You don't even get a second chance. You die, you start over.
That
There's no second chance.
that made me so mad because why do you give me an ability from the beginning of the game? They didn't have this in Returnal. In Returnal, it was complete RNG. If you found the item that gave you a revive, you could get it. But in this game, they wanted you to have a permanent res throughout the entirety of the game after you unlock it very early on until the last area. That's stupid. Do not take away a mechanic of the game that I've had since the beginning just to make it artificially hard.
Yeah, I agree. I think that is bad difficulty design right there. Now, the second thing, and this is the part that really frustrates me, the weapons. I am sorry, in this game, if it is not the smart rifle, the tactical rifle, the eruptor hand cannon, or the ricochet hand cannon, I'm not interested in using it. I'm just not. That is, and there will be somebody that listens to this and goes, "Well, that's four weapons. That's decent variety." That's literally the same weapon, but twice. That's all it is, with different abilities. The Eruptor does more stagger damage on the hand cannon, whereas the Ricochet can hit more enemies at one time. The Smart Rifle has auto aiming, and like the bullets automatically trace. The Tac Rifle just hits whatever you're aiming at.
Can I just
It's
say
the
how
same.
crazy it
It's
is
the
that they
same
put a
weapon with two variants. Go ahead, Matt.
I was just gonna say, I think it's just so crazy they put a shotgun in this game for enemies that tend to be up in the air at a good
Yes.
distance from you. Like, I never use the shotgun.
Well, and the problem that you run into, and I know, Matt, you ran into this problem. You can talk about this. The problem is that at some point you want to use better weapons, but when it just constantly gives you shotguns over and over again, the problem
Yeah.
I then noticed was if I wanted better weapons, but I was constantly given like bad options, if I took those options, it would constantly give me more of that gun.
Yep.
Like I had to make a point to not take certain weapons so that it would not give me them later on down the road. I had to stick with weaker weapons because of that. Because I didn't want to use a shotgun for an enemy that's flying around that I'm not going to be able to hit that easily. I don't
Yeah.
want that. So, and I know, Matt, when you got, I think it was to the level right after Architect, I think you got there and you said you were struggling because you just couldn't get anything that wasn't a shotgun.
Yeah, so during that level, I actually had a really good auto rifle that had auto lock on it. Um, and then I was forced to get this new weapon, which is basically it shoots out these discs. And after that, I could not I could not progress much further. Like I died almost instantly after I got that weapon, and they forced me to use it. I was like, damn. If I just kept my regular gun, I would have had no problem. But when they force you to use a weapon because it's new, they want you to try it out. I have an issue with that. Like, not even giving me the option to swap my old gun back out.
Yeah, I thought that was bad as well. Kyle, the weapons in Returnal, I felt like were very balanced. I felt like you could have success with whatever you went with on there. I felt like in this game, again, you get anything outside of the 4 weapons I mentioned, which again are realistically just 2 different weapons, but with 2 variants. I feel like that is a pretty big knock against the game where combat is this important. And trust me, when we get to the story, you will see how important combat is to this game's success. When 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 your weapon variety is that shallow, Kyle, I feel like that's a really, really damning point against this game.
Yeah, I was not impressed by the weapons whatsoever. They progressively got worse, which unfortunately was supposed to make the game easier as you unlock more weapons. You have a bigger variety, not just the guns. I also did not like most of the power arms. I really only liked the Prominence, which was a big explosion. That's it.
Yeah.
I didn't like any of the other ones. I'm going to be honest. Prominence was the best one. The rest of them were not great. The Nova Lance sucked. The laser sucked. The Dispiritor sucked. I didn't like them. The guns and the arms progressively getting worse. The fact that I got the best gun and the best power arm in the first area meant that every time I unlocked a new gun and power arm, my weapon pool gets wider, full of shit, full of dog shit, and I'm having to sift more and more. If these guns and power arms were actually good, like in Returnal, you get better weapons as you go on. You get really damn good weapons as you go on. And you get a lot of abilities. This feels like this was their first game and Returnal was their second. It makes no damn sense to me, especially when here are 2 things that we haven't talked about. Number 1, and they both have to do with level design. The level design in this game, it's complicated because I think the levels look good graphically. And the way that they are laid out is fine. Some of them were really tough, but the boss area specifically, when it comes to getting there, sucks ass. It is miserable because in the very first level, they open up a shortcut and they make you think that they're going to do that for every boss. Not only do they not do that, from the second boss forward, almost all of them make you run down 2 different paths to hit buttons or tuning forks or bells or switches just to open the boss level. And if you even die at the boss, those don't stay open. You have to go and hit those switches, those bells, those tuning forks every single time. That was one of the worst decisions I've ever seen in a roguelike, because in Returnal, you just had to run to the boss. And honestly, all you had to do was just find the boss door. You could go through once you had opened it for the first time. Every time after that, you could just go through the boss door once you found it. The only hard part was it was RNG as to where it would be. I'd much rather deal with that than know exactly where the boss door is going to be every time, but have to run 2 paths.
Yep. And I think especially they really play that up later in the priestess level when like they give you that option to go upstairs to fight the priestess, and then it just turns into a never-ending staircase.
Oh my god,
Like
the
it's
cathedral.
like they knew what they were doing when they did that. They were like, we're gonna pull this little gotcha on you, and I'm like, okay, like that's just kind of stupid, but whatever.
I absolutely did not care about
ahead.
the cathedral level when I was playing it. That's the one with the tuning forks.
Yeah.
And like they did the whole thing where it flips you onto the ceiling. There was some irritating level design there. That's actually where my run ended when I started back from the beginning to that
Yeah.
point.
Yeah, well, same actually. That was where I didn't even get to the priestess at that point. But my biggest thing with the level design in this game is like I just feel like for something that is quote unquote constantly changing, I felt like I started seeing the same exact paths every time.
Yes.
Like there
It
was
felt like
there
that
was
after a while.
there was very rarely a moment where I was like, I haven't seen this pathway yet. Like,
Oof.
and I get that, like, over 20 hours into the game, yeah, you probably have seen a lot of what they have to offer. But the whole point of the game is that it's random, it's RNG, it's supposed to change, and I just didn't feel like there was that much variety in the level designs. The levels themselves look cool. Like I loved Shepard's level. I
Mhm.
loved that. I thought his level was cool. I thought the Black Dam was really cool. I thought that some of these levels were really well designed, but the actual RNG roguelike nature of it was what ultimately fell short. And that's where I began to really lose patience with the game. Now, the next part of this is going to seem like it shouldn't be that big of a deal in a roguelike, but unfortunately, because it was very prevalent in Returnal, and frankly, it was done much better in Returnal. The story of this game is a joke too. I'm sorry, like I don't know what they were going for here because it starts out as your Arjun Devraj, and you're a part of this group called the Soltari, and you're looking for your wife. Well, you're also looking for the other crews of the echelon groups. You're looking for them as well, but you're on like a mission to also find your wife. And spoiler alert for anyone who wants to play this game and gives a damn about the story, you're going to learn very early on to not care whatsoever about it. But the fact that they build it up to Arjun the entire time was just a super manipulative piece of shit, abusive as hell, and she felt safer in the arms of a woman. I'm sorry. That whole thing is just it's so convoluted. It's so convoluted, and I don't want to say what I'm about to say next, but I'm going to. It feels like there was a statement they wanted to make with this game. And I don't think, and the sales numbers reflect what I'm about to say, the statement did not work. Whatever they were trying to say, whether they were making a statement about men in relationships, whatever, does not feel like it worked because the game's sold like absolute shit so far. And that's coming from somebody who I actually like the game. But Kyle, this story is just dog shit. It is not good. It is bad. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to listen to somebody try to tell me, "Oh, well, it's a great, think piece on how on the abusive natures of men." No, it's not. No, it's not. You're telling me that I have to watch this guy get cucked out by another woman, and I'm supposed to think this is an engaging story? It all made sense when I found out the lead voice actor was dating Alana Pierce. It all made sense all of a sudden. I'll let whoever wants to go next talk. I'll let whoever wants to go next. That's just where I'm going to leave that point. That it all made sense when I saw that.
I
Dude, I'll be honest about the story. Like, I thought it was kind of cool at first. It kind of had like this kind of sci-fi Prometheus type of thing where you and the rest of the members are just kind of slowly going mad. Like even some of the other members of your group are just basically losing it. Like that one guy, he just goes crazy painting the sun in some areas, and like I don't know, dude. It had me at first, but then the more I played, especially when you go into that tree and you go through those kind of flashbacks, and it's just Arjun and his wife arguing is they're in the hotel. Obviously we get the whole thing about Arjun being an alcoholic and cheating on his wife, and I'm just like, man, I'm not here for that. You know what I mean?
I
Like I'm not here for something that's hyper realistic. I'm here for something that's a fantasy, and yet somehow in trying to be hyper realistic, you wrote like the ultimate. Like I'm going to be very careful how I phrase this next part because I already know the trouble it'll get us into. You tried to write that side of the barricade's ultimate fan fiction. You tried to write that. Go ahead, Kyle.
I honestly think that, I don't know. They
Feels like a
could,
fan fiction.
yeah, they could have honestly made their own story, and it would have been better. This was supposed to be some inspiration from a book called The Yellow Shore. I've never read it.
Yeah.
I have no idea what it's about, and I don't think anybody who's a fan of
Guarantee-
Returnal cares about that book.
Can guarantee you I'll never read that book.
Yeah, like I have no interest in it, and if the story is anything like the book, well, that's dumb. If the story is not, and you made your own story, well, you didn't do a very good job. I am willing to play another game that Housemarque makes, because sometimes, like we just saw with, IO Interactive and Mind's Eye, sometimes they fall on their face and they don't make what they are supposed to, with what we expect them to, but I would really like to see them learn from this, because Returnal was a fantastic game, just very niche. This game was supposed to be your breakout into a wider audience. I don't think it achieved that. I think your next game needs to, I don't know, maybe just make Returnal 2, in my opinion, if that's what you gotta do. But if your next game is anything like this, if they recover from this, I'm not going to be interested in what they have to come out going forward.
I am in the same vein as you, and I think that all three of us are kind of in that same boat of, listen, the next thing Housemarque makes, I will play, because I want to give it a chance. My advice would be, the next thing you make, it either needs to be Returnal 2 or it needs to be a different genre. It needs to be a different genre entirely. Like, I'm okay with I like roguelikes. I've enjoyed the ones that I've played. I do think that Housemarque is in a situation where either you make Returnal 2 or you make something else entirely. I would love to know, especially with all the statements that have come out about how Sony is frustrated with Naughty Dog right now. I would love to know how they feel about Housemarque. I would love to know. I would love to hear their thoughts on Housemarque, because this game had a massive budget. And I don't have a calculator in front of me. I can't do the math off my top of my head, but 300,000 copies for the budget that game had, that is a flop. That's a flop. I mean, you're not making half of that money back in all likelihood. Like, it sucks, but it just kind of is what it is. So, nonetheless, boys, is there anything else we wanted to talk about before we wrap up on this game?
I just want to say, I think Housemarque is a very talented developer. I think with this, I'm hoping they take a look at this for the story, and if they get to make another game, because the gameplay here is incredible. The game loop is addicting. Like, I sat there for a couple hours playing, like even going back from the beginning to where my last run ended, and it's fun. But it's like when you get to those moments where you hear about the story, that's where I'm just kind of like,
I checked out.
I'm kind of checking. Yeah, I'm checking out right there until I can actually get back to playing the game.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that I didn't come here for a story, and it's not that I don't want stories that are engaging. I want that 100%. I mean, we're all currently playing through 007 right now, and it's got a very, very, very engaging narrative. So, I mean, we want that. But maybe next time, prioritize building a story that is actually interesting and not something that comes off as just a really, really, really poorly written fan fiction. That's the thing I would say. So that is going to do it for this episode of Side Mission. You can follow us on Twitter at Side Mission Podcast, or Side Mission Pod, I should say. You can follow us on Facebook as well at Side Mission Podcast. So for the boys, for Kyle, for Matt, I'm Rusty. Thanks for listening.